I can't believe it's already time to start looking forward to books released next year. I mean, I say already, we're at the very end of the year right now. I'm just in denial. But it is time to start looking forward to the books that are going to be released in early 2026, the first half of the year. I put this disclaimer at the beginning of all of my anticipated releases that if you are looking for a general overview of what is being released in the first however many months of the year, like what might be hyped, some just generally interesting books being released, then I am not your girl for that, because my anticipated releases videos are a curated list of books that I personally am highly likely to pick up. So we have arcs that I've received from the publishers for the beginning of 2026, so I'll be reading them obviously because I'm obligated to. Books by authors that I already know that I enjoy, sequels and series that I'm either up to date on or I've read like the first book or the early books and I know that I enjoy that series. Everything included in this video is included with precedence. There is a reason why I think that it's very likely I will be reading these books or getting my hands on these books over the upcoming year. So I actually only have 15 books to talk to you guys about today. I don't know how many I usually include in these videos, but we are just going to be covering the first 6 months of the year. I always get questions about where I find out about these upcoming releases. I do obviously have, like I said, a few arcs from the publishers, which is how I found out about those books, but for the rest of them, I almost exclusively use Goodreads. So in the browse section of Goodreads, there is an upcoming releases section, and then it will show you releases month by month from authors on your shelf. So authors you've read from before, authors on your want to read, and then there is also a section for the most popular books in order released in that month. So I start with the authors already on my shelves, and then I look at the top 50 to 100 most popular books released in that month, just because my Goodreads in terms of my TBR and books that I actually own is not 100% up to date, but it is generally up to date on books that I have already read. After that, I cross-reference the dates on Goodreads to what is available on Waterstones, because Waterstones is our like dominant bookstore in the UK. So they, for me, are the most reliable source of what the actual release date of the books are going to be. So if you think I'm wrong on any of these, it's either that the UK release date is different to somewhere else in the world, or you can take up that issue with Waterstones. But the first book that I'm excited about in 2026 is an arc that I'm about to be receiving from the publisher. I actually requested this today, and so I thought I would include it in this video because by the time you see it, I will have this in my hands, and I'm definitely planning on reading it in January, and that is Rings of Fate by Melissa de la Cruz. So I've wanted to read from Melissa de la Cruz on and off for quite a number of years. They were a very popular author back in the original YA boom of like 2015, 16, 17, and I kind of missed the boat on all of those. So Rings of Fate is a brand new romantasy from Melissa de la Cruz, so I feel like it's just going to be a step up from those other books that they've already published. So this one has been compared to The Princess Bride, and I believe that it has an element of humor to it, which doesn't always work for me, but this one specifically contains sarcasm, which is sometimes a hit. I am quite a sarcastic person myself, and this is a romance between a barmaid and a prince. I think that the prince is cursed and he has to get married to undo the curse, and then the barmaid is somebody who, I believe she's quite an attractive lady because she's always fighting off proposals, but the last thing she wants is to be married, and especially to a prince. That is all I know about this. You're going to find out for the majority of these books. I just know the bare bones because there will be some reason why I want to read these ones, but I'm excited to give it a go. I'm always up for trying a new romancy or fantasy romance. Next up, we have an arc from Penguin Michael Joseph. This one is The Book of Blood and Roses by Annie Summerly, so thank you very much to Penguin Michael Joseph for sending this one my way. This one is a sapphic romance set in a university where humans and vampires attend, and our main character is a vampire hunter who is undercover at this university because she's searching for a book. One would assume it is The Book of Blood and Roses, but I think that she becomes enthralled by a vampire, which obviously is going to be a conflict of interests. This one is released on the 15th of January, and I'm planning on doing, for all of the review copies I received this year, I'm planning on doing a video like the one I did in November where I read 3 at a time in a reading vlog. So the first reading vlog should contain Rings of Fate, The Book of Blood and Roses, and the next book I'm going to be talking to you guys about, which is a book that is already released in the US. I think it came out towards towards the end of 2025. But in the UK, it is released on the 22nd of January, and that is Hot Desk by Laura Dickerman. I picked this one up at the same event where I got the Book of Blood and Roses, which was a summer Penguin Michael Joseph event. So once again, thank you very much, Penguin Michael Joseph. And this one, I believe, it's more of a contemporary lean-in romance, which I actually like. I like it when we have a little bit more depth in the story than just the romance. And I know that it has a bunch of mixed media, like emails and like text messages, newspaper articles, things like that. And it is a rivals to lovers story, I think, amongst colleagues who share a desk. Yeah, he's a rival editor. They both work in the publishing industry, and for some reason they have to share a desk. The reason why I was drawn to this, because I did choose to pick this one up at the event, is because the synopsis reminds me a lot of The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, which is my favorite contemporary romance. And I hope that this one has at least some of that energy, even though I'm like obviously reserving my expectations because it's probably not going to be better than my favorite book. But I hope it like makes me feel reminiscent of that in some way. For February, I have another arc from Penguin Michael Joseph, another one that I'm very excited about, which is Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinnerman. I believe that the release date on this one is the 10th of February, and this is a new standalone sci-fi story from the author of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, I'm currently 4 books deep into the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm actually really excited to see what else Matt Dinnerman has to offer, because while I do like Dungeon Crawler Carl, there's some things that I'm not as enthusiastic about, and I want to see how his writing differs across different stories, but this is still very much in the same vein as Dungeon Crawler Carl, because this is set on a planet following a guy who has a ranch of like robot, I think they're like agriculture bots, and it's his family ranch and he's been keeping it afloat. And a big intergalactic corporation decide that they want to run an extinction program on this planet, which essentially means that they want to exterminate all life so that they can rebuild it however they want to. So they charge bored people on Earth for the privilege of designing war robots to kill the inhabitants of this planet. So our main character, I think he's called Oliver, has to team up with other people who are residents of this planet to fight back against these war machines and the company that is overseeing the whole thing. One that I'm very excited about, although admittedly I'm not going to be able to give you a super in-depth synopsis on this one, is Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Carhill, which is the first book in the Bound and the Broken series, which is the start of a new adult epic fantasy series. I've heard amazing things about this one because this one is being traditionally published on the 17th of February by The Broken Binding, and thank you very much to The Broken Binding and Black Crow for sending ahead this beautiful proof copy, which I'm obsessed with. They come in 4 different colours and I got the colour that I wanted, so I'm extra happy about it. I got the grey one. But this has been self-published, like the first 4 books and a few of the novellas that go along with it, and as far as I'm aware they are still available on Kindle Unlimited, and they are going to continue to be available on Kindle Unlimited. And so many people who have a very similar taste in fantasy to me really enjoyed this one. Now, I don't know too much about it because I suck at retaining fantasy synopses, especially like adult epic fantasy synopses, when I have no context of the world. Don't worry as well, I do know that there are novellas that go with this series. I am intending to read this one in order, but this one has been sold to me as like a Wheel of Time meets Aragon kind of story for adult readers, and also as like a John Gwynne-esque fantasy, but with, or should I say a Banished Lands-esque fantasy, but with things like dragons in it. There are a faction of warriors in here called the Dragon Guard, and we're following a character who is mourning loss of his brother when he enters into this like series of trials, and 3 people arrive at his village that kind of change his life forever. That is all I know, but I'm super enthusiastic to get into this one. The books just get bigger as you go along, which we all know is a plus for me, and I hope I love this as much as everybody else does. The last one I have for February is Cleopatra by Sarah El-Arifi, which I believe is released on the 26th. Now, I really enjoyed The Final Strife and the sequel, The Battle Drum from Sarah El-Arifi. Didn't love the 3rd installment in that series, and I have DNF'd the Fairbound series after book 2, but I still have hope for Sarah El-Arifi because I'm kind of like at a 50-50 point with her at the minute. So I would like to give Cleopatra a go. I'm not the biggest fan of historical fiction, but it depends how it's executed and what time period it centers around. This one is obviously following Cleopatra, Cleopatra. And I know because I went to Egypt at the end of 2024, so obviously like our tour guide was talking about Cleopatra and all of the ancient pharaohs and the pyramids and all of that stuff. Naturally, I mean, what else would you talk about in Egypt? And I believe that Cleopatra was thought to be a witch. So I think that this book is going to lean into the fantastical side of that and portray Cleopatra as a witch. Aside from that, I don't really know anything about it, but Cleopatra is generally just an interesting historical figure to me. So we also have potential for romance in here as well, which I forgot about. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. If I don't like it, it may be my last Sarah El-Arifi book, but I'm interested enough in the concept of this one to at least give it a go. Moving on to March, I have 2 books, and one that I'm very tentatively excited for is The Daughter of Crows by Mark Lawrence, which is book 1 in his new Kindness Academy series. Now, the reason why I'm tentatively excited about this is because I have read the Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence, really enjoyed it. I haven't read the spin-off series from that. I DNF'd Prince of Thorns after book 1, so I don't like that one. And I do also have the Library trilogy by him that I have not even started. So this is one that I may not rush out to pick up immediately, but it is one that is definitely going to be on my radar, especially because I've recently discovered that all of Mark Lawrence's books may be connected, and that obviously interconnected worlds and series by the same author set in the same world or universe is something that I'm always interested in because I love the intricacies of that. All I know about this one is that it surrounds an academy where 100 girls are set to attend every 10 years, I think, and then at the end of the decade, only 3 emerge. Literally, that's all the knowledge I'm going into this with. I would like to reread the Book of the Ancestor, read the Library trilogy, and the spin-off to the Book of the Ancestor before I even think about this one, but it's definitely a Mark Lawrence synopsis that sounds appealing to me, unlike the Prince of Thorns series, which I didn't really get on with. My second book for March is The Kingdom of Almonds by Ariel Kaplan, which is also released on the 26th. This one is the final book in, I think it's the Mirror Realm cycle, is what the series is called. It's the follow-up to the Pomegranate Gate and the Republic of Salt. If you have not read this series yet and you are a fan of City of Brass and also the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, then I would urge you to pick this up. It's still a massively underrated series. I have yet to read book 2. It's on my reread and resume list in line with the 3rd book being released, so I'd like to reread book 1, read book 2, and then get to book 3, which is of course released in March. This one is set, it's like a historical fantasy, or it's inspired by history because it's not actually set in Spain, it's in like a fantastical world, but it's set around the time that Christianity was like sweeping through Europe and the Jewish people of Spain were asked to leave. So we're following 2 Jewish characters in here called Naphtali and Toba, and they have the option of converting to Christianity or leaving the country. So they decide to leave, but I think it's Toba who can speak but cannot shout, and she can walk but she can't run. So when they're leaving the city, she's falling further and further behind, and she can't cry out for help, she can't move any faster, and somebody starts to usher her to the side of the road to abduct her essentially. So Naphtali follows her to try and stop this from happening, and she disappears through this pomegranate gate into a different realm where she is essentially in a realm that very closely mirrors their own, but with like fantastical beings. It has like a little bit of in there. I don't want to paint this as a romantasy because it does have romantic elements, but it's not like that. It's just the way that in this mirror realm she ends up living with this lord in his like crumbling estate. I think it's a lord and his nephew, and the estate is crumbling around them. Reminds me a lot of A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I loved book 1 and I'm very excited to see this series out. I lied to you guys actually, because for the 26th of March I have Era Twisted Lies by LJ Andrews, which is the sequel to Broken Souls and Bones. I have read a couple of books from LJ Andrews in 2025 from different series, and I've enjoyed all of them. So I'm very excited to see what the follow-up to Broken Souls and Bones has in store. This one is centered around Norse mythology, and it follows this girl who I think her magic is that she's a bone melder. So she has hidden herself because there is a kingdom in this world that takes powerful magic wielders and kind of forces them to work in service to the crown. Lo and behold, one of the king's soldiers turns up at her village one day and discovers her ability and carts her back to the king, where she discovers that the war going between this kingdom and a different kingdom that treat magic wielders differently. They think that magic wielders are cursed as opposed to something that should be utilized, and she learns that the politics between those 2 kingdoms are not as she originally thought. And I mean, she already hates the king of the kingdom that she's in, prison. So as she gets closer to the soldier that originally kidnapped her, they start to uncover a little bit more about this world than she originally anticipated. I also have 2 books for April, and the first one is a little bit of an unprecedented entry on this list, and that is This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me by Ilona Andrews. So I have been recommended Ilona Andrews countless times based on my love of Sarah J Maas. Like when I was trying to get more into romantasy and it wasn't like as popular, tons of people told me to read like the Hidden Legacies series, but I just find Ilona Andrews to be really intimidating because of how long her series are and how many there are. So I thought it might be a good idea to enter into her work with her newest release, because then it's just that one book so far in this series, and it's not like I have this huge backlist, and then if I want to, I can then explore some of her later series. The synopsis of this one actually reminds me of a book we have coming up a little bit later on in this video, which is a sequel to something I've already read. But this one is following a character who wakes up in the world of her favorite dark fantasy book. That is as far into the synopsis as I've read. Like I said, I'm mainly going into this based on the author, and I hope that this is one that really sells Ilona Andrews to me, because then I have all of that backlist to enjoy. The last arc that I have was sent to me by Bloomsbury Archer, so thank you so much to Bloomsbury Archer for that. This is also of course my last April release, and it is Femme Feral by Sam Beck-Bessinger. This one is a satirical novel that compares perimenopause to transitioning into a werewolf, which sounds wild, but if I just read you this literal top paragraph, it says hypercompetent Ellie finds herself beset by unusual midlife symptoms, coarse hair in new places, unexplained insomnia, and howling at the moon. Like literally, how have I never made the comparison between the two before? And this one is released on the 9th of April. For May, I have 3 releases, the first of which is released on my birthday, which is the 5th, and that is The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee. So I've read the Greenbow Saga by Fonda Lee. You might just be able to see them up here. I'm just like pointing all over the place, but I haven't read anything else, any of her newer releases since. But this one sounds interesting to me because the first line of the synopsis says that it is a standalone space opera where corporate samurai fight beneath merciless stars. So that hooked me immediately, and I knew that I was interested in giving this one a try. But essentially we're following a legendary swordswoman who is planning on retiring when she is offered one last mission that she decides to take. So I'm intrigued by the thought of this being a standalone, but also with it being more in the sci-fi genre. I always say I love sci-fi, I just don't read enough of it, so I really would like to prioritize that in 2026 actually, because I have a lot of great sci-fi on my shelves that I just haven't read, and I already know of course that I enjoy Fonda Lee. For the 7th of May, I have a release that doesn't even have a synopsis, so I can't even really tell you what it's about, but I still want to read it, and that is Verity Guild by Mike Corland. I have read the Broken Blade series by Mike Corland, and while I agree with a lot of people that it's not doing anything unique for the genre, I found it very enjoyable and I had a great time. And all I know about Verity Guild is that it is a romantasy, and it is described as The Traitors meets A Court of Silver Flame. So usually that wouldn't be enough to put it on an anticipated releases list for me, but because it is by an author and I've read her other work and really enjoyed it, I definitely want to see what she comes up with in a more romantic setting, especially because this one I believe is going to be considerably longer than the Broken Blades books, which are around 300 to 400 pages each, and this one I think is more than 500, so colour me intrigued. My final book for May is set for release on the 12th, and that is All Hail Chaos by Sarah Rees Brennan. So this is the sequel to Long Live Evil, which, like the Ilona Andrews book we spoke about, is about a girl who gets sucked into the pages of her favourite book. So she has cancer, and somebody appears to her and tells her that she can either die, just stay here and die, or she can go into the pages of her favourite book, and if she plucks this flower that blooms only on one specific night, then she can come back to her homeworld, her body, and will be cured. So she thinks that this is a hoax anyway and goes along with it, and lo and behold, she finds herself in the pages of her favourite book. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones style fantasy, and she is put in the body of the villain. So she tries to play out the story as it goes, like without interrupting the plot too much, while also making sure her character survives long enough for her to pluck this flower. But everything starts to derail very quickly. Some of the characters are actually characters, some are people like her who have been sucked into this book, and she is trying to keep the plot of the book on track while also completing her own mission so that she can live in the real world. The book that I'm probably the most excited about on this list is released on the 2nd of June, and that is The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden. So I still have not read The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden, but I love the Winter Night trilogy. I've already mentioned it in this video, and this feels a lot more in line with the Winter Night trilogy than anything Catherine Arden has published since. This one is following an orphan Duchess of Brittany who is trying to stop her country from falling into enemy hands. So she betroths herself to France's greatest enemy, and she takes her people into the forest because magic and mythology is still somewhat present in this world. So she says that she's going off to hunt a unicorn, and she doesn't think that unicorns exist, and all she wants to do is marry this man in secret so that she can kind of secure some level of safety for her country. And lo and behold, she finds a unicorn in the forest and a man with it, and I feel like based on the Winter Night trilogy I know where this is going, and I'm so ready for it. I'm so excited. I hope that I love it. And then I just have one more book to add to this, which I only found out about when I was researching this video, and I also can't find it on Waterstones. I did find it on Amazon UK, but Waterstones do not even have this book listed, but it is You First by Caroline Kepnes for release on the 9th of June, and this is a Joe Goldberg prequel story. So if you guys don't know, I am a big fan of the You series by Caroline Kepnes. I do think that the story gets worse with every installment, and I do think that she's milking a cash cow right about now, but I am still intrigued enough to read a prequel about Joe Goldberg. So if you are unfamiliar with You, it has been made into a Netflix show now, which has obviously dramatically increased its popularity, but it was originally a book following a man who is a stalker, but you are in his mind and it's written in second perspective, so you are him as he is stalking his victims. And it obviously escalates and escalates, and I feel like with every book in the series it gets wilder and a little bit less believable, especially like book 4 I really didn't like. Like I said, I'm a sucker, so I'm still gonna go ahead and try out the prequel. But I think that that pretty much covers the majority of what I'm hoping to pick up over the next 6 months. So down in my comments, let me know what your guys' most anticipated release of the first half of the year is going to be, so that I can get some more ideas of what's coming out, and so can everybody else who's looking down in the comments. And if you guys would like to let me know that you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a wolf emoji for Femme Feral, and also Broken Souls and Bones. I think that series has wolves in as well, so it's kind of fitting. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.